Okay, I guess we can start now. I'm going to use the Excel sheet that we used before. For explaining the parts of MRP. So first, you have to use the same table that we are showing here. The same table has to be used. So let's start by explaining basics. What is MRP and why are we doing this? Let's go back a little bit backwards and remember that the planning in operations had some levels, starting with business planning, which is planning for long term, forecasting the quantities that you're going to produce for a long term period of time. And then we had aggregate planning in forms of sales and operations planning. Production plan is the output that gives us the quantities of production with the time for product families. Then we needed more details planning for each individual item. So we are usually doing what's called master production schedule, MPS. So the MPS is simply um, the quantities of production for each item, for each model. So if you are producing cars, for each model of your cars, there's going to be quantity to be produced within a specified date, in a specified date. So this is the output of the master production schedule. Now remember that we needed to produce these quantities on these specified dates, which means that you have to make sure that you possess all the raw material and the products or components required to assemble such final products. So to assemble the car, we have to make sure that all the quantities needed for all the car's components are available in our custody. Now, to make sure that this happens, we use backscheduling. So we use MRP. So MRP is a process of getting the requirements that you need for production. And these requirements usually come from two sources. Either you buy them from suppliers or you produce them by yourself. So in the car example, maybe you are producing the car engine by yourself, or sometimes you are buying some parts of the car from other suppliers. So these suppliers usually they will ask you for sometimes minimum order or lot size. So sometimes they will tell you that you cannot ask for tires with whatever you want, the number that you want of products. You cannot do that. It has to be a specified amount, minimum specified amount. For example, if the container load is 50 tires, so it means that you cannot order less than 50. And if you are only importing containers from the supplier, it means that you can order 50s, because each container has 50 tires, so it means that you can order 50 or 100, it means 2 containers, or 150, 3 containers, and so on. So this is what we called lot size here. And for each supplier, there is a lead time. Lead time is the time it takes to bring the item, to bring the component or the product or the raw material. So from the time of ordering till the time of receiving, we have a lead time. So for each item, you have to make sure that you have details about lead time, about lot size, and about stock and safety stock. Actual stock is the amount of stock on hand, the stock that you have from this item, because sometimes maybe before we order those tires, we have some quantity on our hand that will be sufficient for production. Or maybe it is not sufficient, but I have to make sure that I use this quantity first before I order additional quantity. So you have to revert to your inventory levels, inventory details or information. You have stock of each item, of each component, and you have safety stock. The safety stock is minimum level of stock we accept, is stock that we keep so that in case of uncertainties, in case of any problems happen, we have additional stock that will help us to continue our work, continue our production process without stoppages. Let's give some examples. So the safety stock, as we said, is additional stock that we keep so that if something happened, what may happen? For example, lead time was 1 week, but the products were delayed in the port. It means that instead of 1 week, they will come in 10 days. So my whole plan depends on getting all the items at the same time so that the MPS is linked to the MRP, to produce the quantities of products that we need. So if I don't have stock, the production will stop. So safety stock will help me to mitigate this risk by having stock that can be used in these 3 days where the product is delayed at the ports, and then we can continue our production without problem. Safety stock can also be helpful if the demand increased. So because we know that at the end you have safety stock from each component and safety stock from the final product itself. The final product is produced according to demand forecast. The demand forecast may not be accurate, so you need extra stock to help you to serve customers if the demand had any spikes that were unexpected. So far, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So,
sir. Sir, I want to ask you that can I make this table in Word?
yes, you can copy and paste the table in Word. Okay.
No, I mean write all the steps, but not in Excel.
I don't get it. How's that?
I
Write
mean
the steps.
I solve the question and write this table, but not in Excel and make copy paste. Immediately I write it in Word. Is it fine or
What we
it should
need,
in Excel?
I don't really know why you are going to do this, but what we need is the same table. If you are going to provide the same table with the same items, it's okay. Whatever the way you're going to do it. Okay? As long as you are using the same items, the same rows, it is the same. So let's discuss the next points here. We have
Yes,
gross
thank you.
requirements, schedule receipts, planned receipts, projected on-hand inventory, planned order release. So let's continue. We discussed that lead time is an estimate of time between placing an order and receiving the item in inventory. So for every item, we have different lead time according to our history with the supplier, according to the distance of supplier from us, where is the supplier, what time it takes to provide the items to us. So this will be given. Lot sizing, determining the timing and the size of each order quantities. We have fixed order quantity, and we have sometimes lot for lot or one, which means that we can produce or we can order whatever items we need from suppliers. So these are the two basic types of lot sizes that we're going to use. The gross requirement is the total demand derived from all parent production plans. What is that? Gross requirement is the requirement needed for the final product. It is coming from the MPS. It is coming from the master production schedule, which means it's your production plan. You need how many cars? This is the gross requirement. That's why it's called gross requirements. But remember that one of the inputs to MRP is bill of material. Bill of material is a list that is showing the components of each end item, of each final product. So for each final product, we're going to know, according to the bill of material, what are the list of components, and we're going to use this bill of material to construct the MRP. So the gross requirement is derived from the parent demand, or the basic demand of the end item, and then for each component there will be gross requirement also. So we're going to check the bill of material and calculate the gross requirements. Schedule receipts, order that have been placed but not yet completed. Simply, we have we release order on the planned order release. Okay, so sometimes there are orders from the previous MRP. They're going to be recorded here in the schedule receipt. So if it's weeks before this week one, and we have a planned order release at that week, so they should be recorded here in the scheduled receipt. Planned receipt is order not yet released to production or the supplier. These are the order that you want to receive on that week, order that you want to get to compensate for the shortage of items or components that you have. Projected on hand inventory, it's an expected amount of stock that you have after you give to customers, after satisfaction of the requirement. So usually you have gross requirement, which means it's the demand that you want to satisfy. And if you have schedule receipt, it should be added to your inventory. You have on-hand inventory, so you add them together. And if you have planned receipt also, you add them together. And the total, the sum of the schedule receipts, planned receipts, projected on-hand inventory should be minus the gross requirement to give you the new projected on-hand inventory. And we have, so this is the formula: inventory on hand from previous period plus schedule and the planned receipts, schedule receipts and the planned receipts, minus gross requirements of actual period. This will give us the new projected on hand inventory. And we said that planned order release is the planned receipt, but shifted according to the lead time. So let's see how to do it. First, you have some data, some givens. You have to place all the givens in the schedules, like the stock, item, lead time, schedule receipts, lot size. Then start with filling the gross requirement. Then you have to start with calculating the projected on-hand inventory. If it's less than 0, calculate the amount at planned receipt based on the lot sizing rules. If planned receipts more than 0, then schedule the same amount a few periods earlier based on the given lead time. Then the last step, choose a sub-item with all the requirements from the parent items known. Calculate the gross requirement for this sub-item based on the planned order release of these parent items, multiply by the usage quantity in the bill of material. Repeat 2 and 3 in step 2. Of course, it may not be clear now, so let's start seeing the table. This is the tables that you're going to use. So we have the rows that we explained. For each item or for each component, you're going to have one table. So let's have a look at this example. We have the product tree, product structure tree, or bill of material the same way. We have product A, which needs 2 items of B and 2 items of C. And for each item of B, we need 1 item of C and 1 item of D. So this is the product structure and how the product is constructed. And we have some information about A, B, C, and D. Information regards to stock, safety stock, lot size, and lead time. And we have, okay, so the master production schedule calls for production of 20A in period 1, 30 in period 2, 20 in period 3, 15 in period 4, 15 in period 5. That's the gross requirement. And we have information about schedule receipt for different components, and we want to calculate the MRP exclusion. How to solve it? We have the empty MRP. Let's start by filling these items. So we need here item A, item B, item C, and item D. 4 items, as you can see. And we have some information. We can take this here. So the stock of item A is, as you can see from the table, 30. Safety stock is 5. Lead time for A is 1. Lot size is 25. So you cannot order whatever less than 25. You can order 25 or 50 or 75 or 100 and so on. For item B, we have stock of 50. We have safety stock of 0. Lead time 2 weeks. And lot size is 100. For item C, stock is 120, 0 safety stock. Lead time is 1 week, 1 lot size means 1 lot for each lot, 1 lot for lot, or lot size is 1, so you can order whatever quantity that you want. For item D, stock is 100, safety stock is 0, lead time is 1, lot size is 100. So this is the first step that you do. You just fill the details of these components or products in the tables. So that is enough. We don't need this anymore. Then we have some information here. Let's take them also. So the master production schedules calls for production of 20A in period 1, 30 in period 2. So start with A because this is the parent product. Remember, according to the MRP, it is the basic product, the final product. So we need 20A in period 1 and we need 30, right? 30 in period 2, 20 in period 3. So 20, 30, 20, and 15 in period 4, 15 in period 5. 15 in period 4, 15 in period 5. Okay, that's the first thing to do. Then we have schedule receipts. We're going to fill the schedule receipts as well. Schedule receipt of 25A in period 2. So let's go to period 2 in A. That's 25. 10B in period 2. So in B, we have 10 in period 2. And 40C in period 1. So let's go to C. We have 40 scheduled receipts. Okay. Now we can start calculating the MRP exclusion if we wanted. So let's take this one here. This is the MRP. This is the BOM, the structure tree. So we start with item A. We need to start with calculating the on-hand inventory. What we have here, we have stock of 30. What we do that we neglect those 5 components, the 5 quantity of products, so that we ignore them. We pretend as if we don't have the safety stock. So we have only 25. So the projected on-hand inventory will be 30 minus 5. Now you have 25 on your hand. That's the actual stock. And we have gross requirement in period 1 of 20. It means that you need to give 20 components or 20 products to customers. And you have already 25. So projected on-hand inventory minus the gross requirement of period 1 will give us 5. You're going to give 22 customers and you will have 5 remaining on your hand. So 5 in your hand, and starting with period 1, that's what you have. You don't have to order anything because you have enough stock. In period 2, the gross requirement is 30, but you have 5 on hand. So there is a shortage. But remember that you have schedule receipt here. Schedule receipt of 25. The scheduled receipt is the receipt, so it should be added to your stock. It means that your stock is 25 plus 5 projected on hand inventory. So go back to the formula that we calculated before. Projected on hand inventory equals inventory on hand from previous period plus scheduled receipts and the planned receipts minus gross requirement of the actual period. So inventory on hand from previous period is 5 plus scheduled receipt is 25 plus planned receipt is 0. We don't have a planned receipt here, right? So 0 minus 30. So it is 30 minus 30, right? What you have in hand is 0. You have 25, you added to them 5 from before, minus 30, so 30 minus 30 equals 0. So you satisfy the demand and you don't have stock on hand. Now in period 3, you have 20 as gross requirement, but you have 0 on hand. You don't have products. So in this case, you have to start production or assembly, or you need to order 25. We need 25, so it means that we should receive 25 here. Why 25? Because the lot size is 25. It means that we cannot receive whatever is less than the lot size. Only 25 and multipliers. So we need 20, but we're going to order for 25. So receiving 25 in week 3 means that you should order this before. Remember, it's back scheduling. The lead time is 1 week. It means that you should order 25 on week 2 in the planned order release here, so that you can receive this 25 in week 3. Now you have 25. Remember the equation again. Projected on hand inventory equals inventory on hand from previous period plus scheduled and planned release receipt minus gross requirement. So inventory on hand from previous period 0, scheduled receipt 0, 0 plus 0 plus 25, so that's 25, minus the gross requirement, which is 20, will give us only 5. So that's our new projected on hand inventory. That's the stock level that we have on week 3. In week 4, we have 15 gross requirement. Gross requirement of 15, and we have only 5 on hand. We don't have scheduled receipts. So we have to receive additional quantity of products. So we need to plan for receiving additional quantity here. But remember that lot size is 25. You cannot order whatever is less than 25. So I want to receive 25 here, and this 25 is going to be ordered 1 week before, because this is going to be received in week 4. It means I should order them in week 3 here in the planned order release. I'm going to order 25. So now what do I have on hand? Remember that the equation says 5, the projected on hand inventory from the previous period, plus scheduled receipt 0, plus planned receipt 25, So 5 plus 25, that's 30. Minus the gross requirement gives us 15. So 30 minus 15 gives us 15. Now we have gross requirement of 15 in week 5, but we already have 15. We don't have to order anything. So 15 minus 15, we will have 0, and this is going to be our stock level for the remaining periods here. So far, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So by doing this, we finish the first product. Let's go to item B. Now we have item B. We have to check the BOM or the product tree. Item B is related, linked to item A. For each one of A, we need 2B. So in the planned order release, we have 25A and in week 2 and week 3. It means for each 25, for each one we need 2. So for 25, it means that we need 50 as gross requirement here. Why? Because for 1A, we need 2B. So 25, we should multiply it by 2, will give us the gross requirement of item B. So item B is linked and related to item A. That's why the demand of B is depending on A. So we just check on the product structure tree, and we see how many items, the quantity of items needed for each one. A, for each one of A, we need 2B. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to multiply 25 by 2, that's 50 in both periods here according to the planned order release. So that's the new gross requirement. Now we can start solving the table, the MRP for B, the same way that we did for A. So the first step here that we got the requirements, the gross requirement for B, and then you can start calculating first the projected on-hand inventory. We have stock of 50 minus safety stock of 0. It means that what we have on hand is 50. The 50 will be remaining without any change in week 1 because we don't have any demand. Then in week 2, we have a gross requirement of 50. We have already 50, and there is a scheduled receipt of 10. Remember the equation? Projected on hand inventory from previous period, 50, plus scheduled receipt, 10, plus planned receipt, 0. So that's 50 plus 10 plus 0 means 60. Minus the gross requirement of this period is 50. So the remaining on hand will be 10. So 50 plus 10 minus 50 gives us 10. We have 10 on hand. In period 3, we have new demand of 50 gross requirement, but we only have 10 on hand. It means that we cannot satisfy the demand unless we order new products. So in the planned order receipt here, planned receipt, we need to have more quantities of products. We can have the difference. Maybe someone will say, Mr. We need only 40 because we have 50 and we have 50 as demand and we have 10 on hand, so we need 40 only. I will just say that please check the lot size. If it's 1, then you can order 40. But here the lot size is 100. It means that we cannot order whatever is less than 100. So we need 100 to receive this quantity. Here it means that we should order 2 weeks before according to the lead time. So if this is going to be received on week 3, we need to order this in week 1 in the planned order list. So here we had 10 added to them 100, so that's 110. deducted 50, so the remaining is 60 on hand. And that's the remaining quantity for the remaining weeks. That's what we have for B. So by doing this, we finished MRP for B. Now let's move to C. If you check the product structure tree, you will find out that C is mentioned twice. For each one of A, there we need 2C, and for each one of B, also we need 1C. So we should calculate the demand for C, the gross requirement of C, based on A and B, because it's related to both of them. So we should start by A here, week by week, A and B. So in week 1 we don't have, in week 1 for B we have 100. For one B we need 1C, so we need 100C here as well. In week 2 we have for A 25, we don't have for B. 25 means 50, because for each one of A we need 2C. So we have 50 as a gross requirement here. The same in week 3, because we have 25 here. So that's 50 again. And we don't have other demand for B or A. So that's the gross requirement for item C. So this is the first step. If we did it correctly, then everything will be fine. Start with calculating the projected on-hand inventory. Stock is 120 minus safety stock 0. So the stock is 120, the actual. Okay, now we have 120 on hand. We have scheduled receipts of 40. So that's 160. And we have gross requirement of 100. So the remaining will be 60. Right? So again, the gross requirement, how to calculate the projected on-hand inventory. It is projected on-hand inventory from previous periods, from the beginning balance here, 120, plus scheduled receipt, 40, plus planned receipt, 0. So that's 160, minus gross requirement of 100. It gives us 60. So we have 60 on hand. And we go to the next period, period 2. We need 50 as demand, and we already have 60, so we don't have to order. It's 60 minus 50. We have 10 on hand. And in period 3, we have a shortage. We need 50, and we only have 10 from previous period. It means that we should order and receive a quantity of C. But here, the planned receipt should be decided. Now, let's check the lot size. It's 1. It means that whatever quantity that you're going to need, you can order this quantity. The lot size is 1, so we have 10 on hand, and the gross quantity is 50. So the difference is 40. We can order 40 actually, because there is no minimum order. There is no lot size. So if you want to receive 40 in week 3, check the lead time. It says 1. It means that the planned order release should be 1 week before, which is in week 2. We should order 40 here to receive them in week 3. And the remaining stock will be 0, because we ordered what we need only, and it will be 0 for the remaining periods. Now the last product, last component is D. D is only linked to B. For each one of B, we need 1D. So let's remember that we should check B. We have only 100 in week 1. It means 100 also, because it's 1D. And what we have here, we have projected on-hand inventory is 100 minus 0, it's 100. So 100 on hand, 100 gross requirement. What will be the remaining stock? 0. And that's all, because we don't have any other gross requirement for this item. And by doing this, we completed the MRP explosion for this example.